Hey friends, thanks for joining us again. And this time we're taking a look at John chapter 13, where Jesus washes the disciples' feet. And what's the lesson in there for us? Man, I'll tell you something. It is a wonderful lesson about identity. If you know who you are, you know your identity, and you are secure in that, you're free. You're free to love, to give, and to serve. Enjoy the sermon. I'll see you at the end.
The question I have out of John 13 is, who are you? And this is what we're going to ask. Now, John 13 is about a whole bunch of stuff. But the question I'm going to ask is, who are you? We're going to answer that question by the end. You need to understand this. All of us do, because the enemy does not want you to know these things. This deals with the washing of the disciples' feet. And the passage is real simple and clear. This is the NIV. Let's read it together. It was just before the Passover, John 13, verse 1. It was just before the Passover feast. Jesus knew that the time had come for him to leave this world and to go to the Father. Having loved his own who were in the world, he now showed them the full extent of his love. So I haven't even got to what's on the screen there. The interesting thing is, you are now going to see Jesus. I should have surprised you by not even telling you what I was reading. That Jesus is now going to show his disciples the full extent of his love. And you know, the next sentence should have been, and he was crucified. But that's not it. We're going to see the full extent of his love. And it's not the crucifixion. Weird. You would think the next thing in there, and so then he gave his life as a ransom for many. He was crucified. That's not it. The next thing is this. And we'll tie this in together, the full extent of his love. The evening meal was being served, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, son of Simon, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that hey girls, don't be talking, okay? Thank you. Sorry about that. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, and wrapped a towel around his waist. And after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. How many have read this before? You know the story. It's pretty amazing, isn't it? He came to Simon Peter, who said to him, "Lord, are you going to wash my feet?" And Jesus replied, "Well, you do not realize now what I'm doing, but later you'll understand." No, said Peter. "You shall never wash my feet." Jesus answered, "Well, unless I wash you, you have no part with me." Another one says, "Unless I wash you, you cannot be my disciple." Can you imagine Peter? What? Then Peter's like, "Well, okay then, Lord." Simon Peter replied, "Well, then not just my feet, but my hands and my head as well, everything." Jesus answered, "A person who has had a bath needs only to wash his feet. His whole body's clean, and you are clean, though not every one of you." For he knew who was going to betray him. And that was why he said, "Not every one of you." When he had finished washing their feet, he put on his clothes and returned to his place. "Do you understand what I've done for you?" he asked them. "You call me teacher and Lord, and rightly you do that, for that is what I am. Now that I, your Lord and teacher, have washed your feet, you should wash one another's feet. I've set for you an example, that you should do as I have done for you. I tell you the truth, no servant is greater than his master, nor is a messenger greater than the one who sent him. Now that you know these things, you will be blessed if you do these." Do you want to be blessed? Do you want to be blessed?
Yeah.
This is how you get blessed. Hey, Ron. How is everything?
I'll tell you later.
Yeah.
Yeah, how's Grandpa?
I mean,
Tell you later.
later. Yeah.
I
Long
haven't
story.
eaten since 6 a.m.
Well, we've been praying for you guys in your situation, so I'm
We'll have
looking forward to
delicious
it.
food after.
Yeah.
Actually, I have eaten. I've just had a banana and a handful of carrots.
Right on.
So, not
Well,
really that much.
let's get back to this. Sorry for disturbing you guys. I just noticed Ron, and I wanted to say that. So he this is a really interesting thing. He says, if you want to be blessed, do these things. There's a lot of stuff in here. If you want to be blessed, I want to be blessed. Well, this is one of those, circle it. This is how you be blessed. What? Well, he's going to show you. So now the evening meal was in progress. And then Jesus comes along and does this, and it surprises them. What's the big deal, though? What's going on here? Well, Jesus is trying to teach them a lesson. But what's really going on? There's so much going on here. We're going to look at not everything, but we're going to look at some things. Why was it a big deal that he's washing their feet? Because this is how they got places. They didn't have concrete pavement and step into their car that's on rubber wheels and drives off to whatever. They walked. They walked. But what do you think happens when you walk places?
Mm-hmm.
This is the other thing they did. They used these vehicles which have exhaust. And that can get on your feet. And so dirty feet was an issue back then. It was a big issue. As a matter of fact, before you ever would come into any meal, your feet got washed. It was customary, not just in the Jewish, Hebrew, but even in the whole Greco world. And I was doing a lot of reading on the washing of feet and how it is in so many cultures, but especially these old dirty cultures. That's my feet yesterday. Now, here they are getting ready to have a meal. They got dirty feet. They had to walk there and get there. They're all in this upper room going to have this meal. And they walk those dirty, dusty streets of Jerusalem. And now they all get together to have this meal. This is Leonardo da Vinci's picture of it. You know what the last thing Jesus said here is? Hey, everyone on this side of the table for a picture. That's a weird picture. I don't know what Leonardo was thinking. This has nothing to do with their culture. The plates, the goblets, the utensils, and everyone on one side of the table. But that's a weird picture. It was really more something like this. Now this is kind of a drunken gathering of maidens and men. But this is more in relationship to what you'd see back then. Is laying on these small couches with a small table. Everybody's laying in each other's space. And you better have some clean feet. Mm-hmm. We're not eating at a table with our feet nicely tucked under there and nobody sees it. We're laying around with your feet in other people's face. That's more of a depiction of what it was probably like with them all leaning like that. But in reality, what happened a lot is, and I'll try to demonstrate in this wonderful space, but you were probably eating like this, as you see there, kind of like this, dipping. There weren't forks and spoons and stuff. People were taking pieces of bread. I lived in India for several months. That's how everything was eaten, with bread with your hands. And you're scooping and touching. And when people lay like this guy right here is next to me. His feet are right here in that guy's face. My feet are in that guy's face. And we're all around like this. This is how John could lean back on Jesus' breast and say, "Is it I, Lord?" Remember when he says, "Is it I, Lord?" He says, put his head on his breast. Because Jesus was right here. Mm-hmm. John's hanging out with him. It doesn't make sense to do that in chairs. That's how they ate. So dirty feet was a big deal. But more than that, there they are. That's kind of the way I was just doing it. More than that, every time you ever came into a home in a situation like this, every time your feet were washed. Every time. That's just customary. Now, we don't do that, but if somebody comes to your house, you probably say, "Can I get you a drink?" Or, "Can I take your coat?" We do these familiar hospitality things that we just do. It's built into our culture. Washing your feet was built into the culture every single time. And because of the dusty, dirty world they lived in, it was essential. And it was refreshing, and it was cool. There's many things about washing feet. There's over 35 separate scriptures about washing feet in the Bible. Now, follow this. Why weren't these feet washed? Here we have this gathering. They know they're here for a meal. They know they're here with Jesus. So we got 12 of these guys and Jesus all hanging out, getting ready to have this meal. Why do we have such dirty feet? Want to know why? Because of that. You know who that is? That's a few days ago. That's James and John. They're arguing about something. You know what it is? What is it?
Who's going to be the greatest?
Who's going to be the greatest? I'm going to be, yeah. I'm going to, you know, hey, let's have Mom go and ask him to do it for us. That's the funniest thing. These guys, their nickname is Sons of Thunder. Mom, can you ask if I can be on his right hand? These are the tough guys, you know. These are the biker guys, the guys that have leather spikes on their robes, you know, and they have camels with, you know, real big feet or something. These are the tough guys. Mom, can you ask him if I can sit on his right? It just cracks me up when you know the story. But they're arguing about who's the greatest and what is greatest. And Jesus never, ever stops that argument. Jesus says this. Look. That's cool. You want to be great. That's awesome. But let me redefine greatness for you. You want to be great? If you want to be great. Remember that song? In God's kingdom, learn to be the servant of all. Learn to be the servant of all. You want to be great? Be a servant. What? Jesus turns the whole world upside down, doesn't he? He was first as last. He who is great is a servant of all. So we come to this situation where they're all in this room getting ready to have this meal with Jesus, and they're asking, who's the greatest? As a matter of fact, they're saying, dude, who's washing feet here? The problem is there's no servant in the room. Generally, a servant is there. Every time you read about culturally foot washing, the master of the house did not do it. They always had a servant do it. So this is something. Jesus is doing something very specific. He is making a point. And so he comes to this thing, and they're going, I'm not washing your feet. Are you kidding? Do I look like a servant? Were you not listening yesterday? I'm not your servant. Get your own. Right? Mm-hmm. And they're all pointing. Who should be washing his feet? You know, I think Andrew should have done it. Because it doesn't seem like he did much of anything. So Andrew should do it. Who's going to wash the feet? It ain't nobody. I ain't nobody's servant. I ain't nobody's servant. I remember one time I worked at a spaghetti factory downtown. Not the beautiful big one on John's Landing, but when it used to be downtown on 2nd and, what, isn't that John's Landing is where it's at now? Right there by the gondola?
This one by Clackamas.
No, I'm talking about the original spaghetti. They're all called the original spaghetti factory, but the original one was on like 2nd and Burnside.
Yeah, near the waterfront.
Right. What?
Near the water.
Near the water, but it was on Burnside. It was on 2nd. It wasn't on the water. And it was an old warehouse down there, and the guy Gus, who started them all, I worked for him. There were only 3 when I was working there. Now there's hundreds. But this is years ago. But I was working there at the spaghetti factory. It looked just like that. And there was always a trolley. Almost all of them have a trolley. And I'm working in there, and I was a good waiter. Let me tell you something. And so my situation was I would have a whole section like that, and then over in this area, if you're really good, God bless you. If you're really good, they would give you a party. There's a lot of money in a party. Party of 20. And my station. So you had a choice of keep your station or just do the party or do both. I was cool. I could do both. And I could. I was a great waitress, great server, very fast, and I kept everybody engaged. It was a wonderful thing. Well, one night I got that party and I got behind. And here's what can get you really messed up is your drink orders. Because at the spaghetti factory, if you've ever been, the bar is way far away from the dining area. Way far away. So if you're out there by the trolley, the bar is the whole restaurant on the other side. So if we have drink orders and somebody wants something that you got to go to the bar for, and it can just be cream because they don't have cream. You got to go to the bar to get cream for their coffee. It'll mess you up. So I go to the bar and I say to my good friend who's the bartender, Clay, I said, hey, I'm working like crazy. And Clay, I make my order and Clay says, Mike, I got your drinks for you. I couldn't even believe it. I put my drink order in and stuff, and Clay comes out with this giant tray with all these drinks, and he's got it up, and he says, Mike, I got your drink order for you. I mean, that saved my night. If I mess this table up, I'm going to mess up every other table, because it's going to be a chain. If anybody ever served, it's a chain reaction. One thing goes bad, it's a chain reaction. Your night is over. You're not going to make any money, and they're going to stiff you as well. So you're paying for their meal. It's a terrible thing when things go bad. So here I am doing my thing. Clay knows my situation. He's got this tray, and he says, got your drink order. I said, oh, Clay. I said, thank you, man. What a servant's heart. I just can't believe it. And you know what Clay did? Clay took that whole tray, and he throws it on one of these service stations. He goes, I ain't nobody's servant. Clay wasn't a believer. Here I was going to Bible college and working hard to pay the bills, and I made friends with staff, and Clay was my friend. And when I said, I'm thinking he spoke the same language I do. Hey, what a servant's heart. I ain't nobody's servant. Guess what the drinks did? All over the place. Guess what happened to my night? It destroyed my night. And I was like, what's wrong with that guy? Well, listen, in our world, we've trained our minds. That's our lingo. Hey, what a servant's heart. We go, oh, thank you. Nice. Not Clay. He felt offended. He didn't understand it. Just like those guys who were arguing, I ain't nobody's servant. And then there's Clay. I ain't nobody's servant. Not only is there a problem with their attitudes, they just stink altogether. Filthy, stinky feet. Look at that kid. Remember the days when you could do that? I can't even lift it up to here. Definitely can't. That kid couldn't lick his feet. So we have a situation where we need to have our feet washed, where we need to learn how to love. And these guys couldn't do it. Now, I'll skip that. That's a video. I'm going to skip it. Let's read this together. I'm going to show you why Jesus was able to do what he was able to do. Why Clay couldn't be called a servant. Why none of the guys were able to wash each other's feet. I'm not nobody's servant. And why Jesus was able to. Watch this. Watch this. It says, the evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist, and after that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash his disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. This is the full extent of his love being shared here. This is that amazing thing that he says, now that you know this, you'll be blessed. Now, I want you to, I'm going to read it again. I'm going to read it again. Listen to this. The evening meal was in progress, and the devil had already prompted Judas Iscariot, the son of Simon Iscariot, to betray Jesus. So he got up from the meal, took off his outer clothing, wrapped a towel around his waist. After that, he poured water into a basin and began to wash the disciples' feet, drying them with the towel that was wrapped around him. What? Did you notice something?
Verse 3 is gone.
Verse 3 is gone. I took verse 3 out.
Oh, no.
Verse 3, you didn't notice. It didn't change the story. It didn't change anything. So I have to say verse 3 must be the most insignificant verse in that passage, because when you take it out, nothing changes. Or maybe that if something is not missed, that it's that important. If it's not needed to make the point, then why is it there? Because it is the point. Mm-hmm. That's how Hebrews think. That's the most important part of the sentence. Let's see it again. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God.
Yeah.
Without that, the story's the same. With it, it's magical. Watch. Jesus knew that the Father had put all things under his feet, under his power, and that he had come from God and was returning to God. I'm thinking feet still. Put everything under his feet. What are the three questions of mankind? If you took philosophy, you had to answer these. You had to study these. And what are they? Where did I come from? Why am I here? And where am I going? This is important. Every human being is trying to answer these questions in one way or another. This is what drives us. This is what makes us who we are, is trying to figure these things out or having figured them out. Why am I here? Where did I come from? Where am I going? Jesus knew why he was here. The Father had put all things under his power. He knew what he was here to do. He came to seek and to save the lost. He had purpose. He had meaning. He had focus. Jesus understood that. Jesus also understood, where did I come from? Well, it says, and that he had come from God, and where am I going? And that he was returning to the Father. Jesus knew who he was. Jesus didn't have any doubt about his identity. The disciples, I know he's servant. Why can't people wash feet? Because they don't know who they are. And I'm not going to be stuck with the label of servant. That's definitely not who I are. I am respectable. I am somebody important. I am somebody significant. And you can wash your own feet. One time we were visiting this family, and this guy had invited us, and he had this thing in his mind that we were going to have breakfast at his house, and his wife hadn't been clued in. And so, before we left that night, I said, so we're coming back for breakfast? And she looked at us, and she had a deep voice. And she's I don't think so. He goes, no, we're having breakfast here, right? And she says, I'm not making no breakfast. And he said, well, they can have Cheerios. You can make them Cheerios. And she said, you can get your own darn Cheerios. And we've said that to each other for years.
The other word.
She didn't use darn. You can get your own darn Cheerios. We're like, who says that? Definitely not a gift of hospitality.
Yeah.
But it cracked us up. So for years, we've said that whenever somebody says, "Yeah, get me my coffee." You get your own darn coffee. You know? I ain't your servant. You know, you get your own darn coffee. We cracked up when she said that. We got in the cars. Who says that? You know, I don't mind because we had a free breakfast at our hotel. We could have done that. You know, there was no big deal. But I've never had anybody say that. You can get your own darn coffee. And so she didn't know who she was. They didn't know who they were. Jesus could do this thing. Jesus took off his outer clothing. He put on the costume, the garb, the uniform of a servant. This is a big deal. That towel around his waist is a big deal in their culture. I studied a lot on the towel. The towel means a lot. And the kind of towel and how he did. There's a lot going on in this story that we don't understand because we don't know that culture. But suffice it to say, they understood that this man was now putting on the servant. So when he gets to Peter, Peter freaks. Peter's going, oh man, I did it again. I am such a moron. Peter, the guy that says things and, oh, great, Peter. And then he says, get thee behind me, Peter. This same Peter, the Peter says, I'll never deny you. And then this little girl says, aren't you one of them? No. You know, this Peter who says, I'm not washing anybody's feet. And then along comes Jesus, Lord of Lords, master of everything. And he strips down and takes this basin and starts washing feet. And he says, you don't understand what I'm doing here. I'm doing something big. Peter says, well, then just wash everything. He goes, no. You see what Peter's doing? In every one of those things, Peter's trying to dictate what Jesus is or isn't going to do. You ain't washing me. Okay, then you're washing me off. And Jesus, again, he gets into trouble in Matthew 16 where Jesus says, I'm going to the cross. Peter goes, no, may it never be. He says, get thee behind me, Satan. Peter's constantly trying to tell Jesus his agenda and what's going on. Peter finally, after the Holy Spirit comes on him, becomes this incredible servant of God. This is the turning point in Peter's life, right here. And he says, Peter, if you don't let me do this, you have nothing to do with me. That was huge. Peter gave up everything. Remember? He was fishing and he just threw it away. And he went, he gave everything to the Lord. And the Lord says, I'm going to do this thing. I'm going to wash you. Now, scholars debate on this whole thing. What's the significance of the washing of the feet? Is it washing sin? Is it reminding them of baptism? Is it reminding them of his death? What is it? And should it be included as one of the sacraments of the church today? Two sacraments we have. The Lord's Supper and baptism. Many churches believe that washing feet is a third one that should be instituted because he says do it. We don't do it. And a lot of reasons why we don't do it. Culturally, you want to take your feet off, your socks off, and show me your nasty feet? You know? You can, hey, anybody can wash my feet. My feet are beautiful. And how beautiful are the feet of those who preach the gospel. Amen? But some people, you have corns or nails that are falling off or just strange looking feet. And your feet is something you don't want to be dealing with. And so culturally, we don't do that. But these guys are living with They were going barefoot and in sandals. It's easy. That was their culture. Some churches, some denominations, this is what they do. And they do it regularly. And some people aren't part of those churches because they don't want their feet being touched. It's weird. But there are those who believe this should be being done. Well, we can do it. We can do it, what's the word I'm trying to think of? Metaphorically, or what? Figuratively, by loving each other, by taking each other's burdens, by being there for prayer. There are many ways we can wash each other's feet, and that's a reality. So Jesus was able to do these things because Jesus knew who he was. Jesus knew his identity. And because he knew his identity, he was free to serve. Listen, you are precious. You know, I'm just curious, who are you? Who are you? What is your identity? Because if you can get this right, if you can get your identity thing right, you will be fully blessed. Because you're going to walk in the servant's uniform. You don't have anything to prove. Oh, you may be of high status. You may have a lot of money. You may be of low status. You may have no money. You know how we status, people in our world. Jesus says, I don't care about that stuff. I don't care about that. Here's what he cares about. You are beloved. You are a saint of God. You're accepted, you're significant, and you're secure. There's my bass word again. You are, it's all about the base, right? It's all about that base. Beloved, accepted, significant, and secure. That's who you are. You are loved. You are just a saint of God. He poured out his blood to cleanse you, to make you a saint. You are perfect. You are pure. You are holy. That's your identity. Don't let anybody tell you any different. And you know who's going to tell you different? The enemy. Constantly. Some of your friends that don't understand their identity. And your own little brain. The tapes that need to be erased, but they're still running from your days before. You are. Your identity is bass. Wide-mouthed bass. Wide-mouthed bass. You're a bass. You're beloved, accepted, significant. You are part of the team. Your role, nobody else can fulfill. God has a place for you. He has a purpose for you. He's using you right now. You don't even know it. I'll never forget my first year of Bible college. I was such a... I got kicked out of that college several times. Because I'd never been around Christians. I didn't know they were so uptight about stuff. And you can't steal the toilet seats from the girls' dorm. Who said that? But I guess that's a rule. And so I got in a lot of trouble. And I was really struggling with my faith, thinking, why am I even here? These people are so weird. And I don't fit in. And I remember at the end of the year, this one girl, I'll never forget her name was Linda, and she came up to me, she said, Mike, and I didn't have much to do with her. I knew her boyfriend pretty good. And she said, I couldn't have made it if it wasn't for you. I'm like, what? Man, you're the only thing that kept me in this school. I said, how am I impacting anybody positive? She said, I just said, if Philippi can make it, anybody can. And she said, I was so encouraged by your positive attitude and your fun-loving nature and the fact that they kept trying to beat you down and make you boring like everybody else, and you stayed and you hung out. I was thinking, I'm never coming back here. I was thinking, God must have wired me this way for a reason. And it blessed her and helped her through that.
Well, we got cut off and I wasn't able to fully finish that thought. But the idea is Jesus knew his identity, which freed him to love, to serve, to give to others. And we can do the same thing, not necessarily through foot washing, but through loving, metaphorically foot washing. As we minister one to another in the local church setting, we can show Christ's love one to another and let people know they are beloved by the Father. They are accepted. They are significant and make a huge difference, and they are secure in Christ. Boy, I hope that is an encouraging word for you. Now, go out and have fun, serving, loving, and just being who you really are in Jesus Christ.